Your driver has a gun and a plan to kill you. Don't go in the car. I'm coming for you, Iseul.
Zita's hands shook just a little as she reached for Iseul's collar. The silk of his tie felt cool against her skin. She carefully finished the knot and brushed her knuckles against his crisp, white shirt. She smoothed the silk flat against his chest. "There," she said softly. "Perfect." But then Zita looked past him and through the big glass windows. She saw Yi Ha-yoon, the driver, standing by the car. The morning sun was very bright, and it hit something metal under his jacket. It was the edge of a gun. Yi Ha-yoon was moving in a strange way, like he was getting ready to fight. He had a look on his face that was full of fear and anger. Zita did not move away. She leaned in closer, pretending to fix his collar one more time. "Your driver has a gun and a plan to kill you," she whispered into Iseul's ear. "Don't get in the car." Zita had worked in this big mansion for 3 months. For 3 months, she had been like a ghost. She kept her head down and did her work. The big hallway smelled like lemon soap and Iseul's expensive cologne, which smelled like wood and leather. Bright sunlight came through the windows and hit the marble floors that Zita had scrubbed on her hands and knees just yesterday. Above them, the giant glass chandelier shined like diamonds. It cost more than anything Zita's family had ever owned. "You missed a spot, Zita," Iseul said. His voice was deep and scary, making the other workers jump. But Zita was not afraid. She knew his bark was worse than his bite if she did her job well. Iseul was 34 years old. He acted like a man who never heard the word no. Zita had spent her whole life watching people. Her father had a mean temper, so she learned how to read faces and hands to stay safe. She knew how to be invisible when she had to be, and how to be brave when things got dangerous. This morning, she chose to be brave. Iseul's body remained as stiff as the marble pillars around them. For a few seconds, he did not even breathe. The air in the big hallway felt heavy. He did not turn his head or grab a gun. Instead, he looked at the reflection in the glass door. He saw Yu-yoon standing by the car in the bright morning sun. To anyone else, the driver looked like a good worker. But now that Zita had pointed it out, the way he kept looking at his watch seemed like a countdown to something bad. Zita pulled a lint roller from her apron. Her heart was beating fast like a trapped bird. She moved the roller over Iseul's shoulders with steady strokes. To anyone watching from the outside, they were just finishing their morning routine. It looked like a maid was just making her master look perfect. Iseul's jaw tightened, but he stayed very still. He let her finish. His face looked like ice calm but very scary. "Antonio," Iseul called out. His voice was not loud, but it was sharp. A big man with broad shoulders appeared from the shadows. Antonio was Iseul's shadow. He did not talk much. Iseul kept his eyes on Zita as he spoke. "Cancel the car. Tell Yi Ha-yoon I will work from my study today. And Antonio, take him to the basement. I want to know who paid him to betray me." Antonio gave a small nod and left. A moment later, a muffled sound came from the driveway. There was a loud thud of a car door and the screech of tires. Zita stayed frozen with the lint roller in her hand. The warm sunlight continued to fill the room. Everything looked peaceful and pretty, but the feeling of being safe was gone. Zita knew she had just changed everything. She had put a target on her own back. Iseul did not say thank you. He did not even look happy. He simply turned and walked toward the big curved stairs. "Follow me, Zita," he commanded. She dropped the lint roller and followed him. Her flat shoes were silent on the expensive rug. They went to the second floor and entered his private office. The office smelled like sandalwood and old paper. It was a room Zita only saw when she had to vacuum. Iseul walked behind his big wood desk and sat down. He pointed to a leather chair for Zita. He watched her for a long time. His dark eyebrows were pulled together as he thought. The silence was so thick it felt like it might snap. 3 months, Iseul said finally. His voice was a low rumble. "You have lived in this house for 3 months. I did not know you could read a man's mind from 50 feet away. Why did you say something?" Zita sat on her hands so he wouldn't see them shaking. "I grew up in a house where staying quiet was dangerous, sir. My father had a very mean temper. I learned early that if you don't watch a person's hands and eyes, you won't know when they are going to hurt you. Yi-hyun's hands were wrong. His eyes were wrong. He was not waiting to drive you. He was waiting to hurt you. Iseul leaned back. The sunlight caught the gold flecks in his dark eyes. A tiny smile touched his lips. It was the look of a man who had just found something very valuable. Most people are afraid of me, Zita. They see a monster, but you looked at me and saw a trap. Instead of letting it happen so you could be free, you chose to save me. I don't like people who are mean, Zita whispered, and I don't like people who are not loyal. Iseul stood up and walked around the desk. He stopped right in front of her. He was very tall and powerful. Loyalty is the most important thing to me. Yi-hyun was a fake. You, however, might be the luckiest charm I have ever found. He looked at her tan maid's uniform. You are done scrubbing floors, Zita. From today, you are my personal assistant. You will move to the big guest wing on the 3rd floor. Your salary will be tripled. Zita blinked. Her mouth fell open a little. Sir, hey, I'm just a maid. I don't know about your business. You know how to see what everyone else misses, Iseul said softly. He reached out and touched her chin gently so she had to look at him. In my world, that is worth more than gold. You will go to meetings with me. You will be my eyes when I am not looking. He stepped back and became serious again. Go tell the housekeeper to move your things. I expect you back here in an hour. We have a lot of work to do. Zita stood up, her head spinning. She had started the morning as a maid. Now, she was at the heart of a mafia empire. As she walked to the door, she felt Iseul watching her. Her life would never be the same. She was part of his dangerous world now, and she wasn't sure if she was safe or just a bigger target. Moving from the small, dark room in the basement to the guest wing on the 3rd floor felt like traveling to a different planet. Zita carried her only bag, a worn-out canvas sack, down the long, quiet hallway. Her old shoes made no sound on the thick, plush rugs. For months, she had been a shadow that cleaned the corners of this palace. Now, she was moving into the light, and it felt like the brightness might burn her. The room Iseul had given her was bigger than her whole family's apartment. The walls were a soft, creamy white that caught the afternoon sun. The whole space glowed with a warm, hazy light that made the furniture look like it was made of gold. There was a balcony that looked over the gardens, where guards in tan suits walked back and forth. The air here didn't smell like bleach or soap. It smelled like fresh flowers and Iseul's expensive wood scent. Zita stood in the middle of the room, feeling small and out of place. A soft knock at the door made her jump. It was Elena, the head housekeeper. Elena had always looked at Zita like a tool that needed to stay sharp. Today, her eyes were cold and curious. Behind her, 2 young maids pushed a rack filled with new clothes. They didn't look at Zita. They kept their heads down and moved quickly, just like Zita used to do. She saw one of them glance at her red, rough knuckles before looking away. They weren't just being quiet, they were mad. To them, Zita was the girl who had cheated the system by whispering to the boss. When they left, Zita stood in front of the tall mirror and began to change. She took off her tan uniform. She felt strange without her apron tied around her waist. She picked out a dress the color of a winter sky and pulled it on. The silk was cool and heavy against her skin. It fit her perfectly. She pinned her dark brown hair back into a neat bun. Without her lace headband, her face felt very exposed. She looked at her reflection and didn't know the girl staring back. She looked wealthy. She looked important. She looked like she belonged in Iseul's world. But when she looked at her hands, she still saw the small scars from years of hard work. She saw the way her fingers still shook. A person can put a bird in a golden cage and dress it in silk, but it is still a bird that knows what it's like to be hungry. Zita stepped out onto the balcony. The golden hour light was turning the gardens orange and pink. Below, she saw Iseul standing by a fountain. He was talking to a man she didn't know. Even from far away, he looked very powerful. He looked up then, as if he knew she was watching. For a long second, they just looked at each other, the boss in his palace and the maid in her fancy new clothes. He didn't smile, but he bowed his head just a little bit. It was a small sign that he owned her now. She went back inside and closed the glass doors, but she couldn't stop the feeling that she was being watched. She was no longer a ghost in the mansion. She was a target. Every worker in the house knew her face now, and soon every enemy Iseul had would know it too. She sat on the edge of the big, soft bed and squeezed the silk of her dress until her knuckles turned white. She had saved Iseul's life, and he had given her a new one. But as the sun went down and the shadows got long, Zita realized she had traded her invisible life for a very beautiful, very dangerous cage. The transition from scrubbing floors to holding a leather-bound portfolio felt like stepping into a new world. 3 weeks had passed since the morning Zita had whispered a warning against the silk of Iseul's tie. Tonight was the first time she would truly be put to the test. She stood in front of the full-length mirror in the guest wing, smoothing the fabric of a slate-gray silk dress. It was elegant and expensive. She looked like she belonged in Iseul's world, but as she adjusted a small lace ribbon tied around her wrist, a quiet nod to the maid she had been, her fingers still trembled. Iseul was waiting for her in the foyer. The setting sun poured through the high windows. It bathed the marble in a hazy, golden glow that made the entire mansion look like a beautiful dream. He stood with his back to her, looking out at the gardens. His dove-gray suit jacket fit his broad shoulders perfectly. When he heard her footsteps, he turned. Those dark, piercing eyes swept over her. For a heartbeat, the cold mask he always wore seemed to flicker. He did not offer a compliment, but he reached out. His long fingers grazed the silk of her shoulder as he adjusted the strap of her dress. "Stay close," he said. His voice was a low, steady rumble. "You are not there to take notes, Zita. You are there to be my eyes. These men speak in numbers, but they lie with their hands. Find the lie." The private dining room at the top of the city was a glass-walled sanctuary. As they entered, the atmosphere changed. 4 men were already seated. The air was thick with the smell of expensive tobacco and chilled drinks. These were Iseul's partners. They all stood when Iseul entered, their smiles looking practiced and hollow. Zita took her seat slightly behind and to the right of Iseul. She opened the portfolio and held her pen, but she did not look at the paper. She watched. She watched how Mr. Han's eyes darted toward the door every time a waiter entered. She watched how Mr. Choi gripped his glass so tightly his knuckles turned white. But it was the man directly across from Iseul, a veteran named Mr. Song, who caught her attention. He was the most relaxed person at the table. He laughed at Iseul's jokes and nodded in all the right places. To anyone else, Mr. Song looked like a loyal friend. But Zita grew up in a house where a smile was often a lie. She noticed that every time Iseul mentioned the specific warehouse on Marlborough Street, Mr. Song's left thumb would trace the edge of his gold ring. It was a rhythmic, nervous habit. It was a tale Zita had seen 100 times on her father when he was hiding a secret. Zita leaned forward slightly. The scent of Iseul's sandalwood cologne made her feel brave. Iseul was mid-sentence. He was about to agree to Song's proposal to move the security guards away from the docks for the night. Zita felt the old fear of power in her throat. She was just a maid. Who was she to interrupt a meeting worth millions of dollars? But then she saw Mr. Song steal a glance at his watch. It was not a casual look, it was a desperate one. She leaned in, her lips inches from Iseul's ear. She waited until Iseul shifted his weight toward her. "Mr. Song is tracing his ring," she whispered. Her words were barely a breath. "He is not listening to the numbers. He is counting the minutes. He is not a partner tonight. He is a timer. Don't sign the agreement." Iseul did not flinch. He did not even look at her. He simply picked up his glass and set it back down with a loud click. The room went silent. Mr. Song's thumb froze on his ring. The golden light of the dining room suddenly felt cold. "You know, Song," Iseul said. His voice was a dangerous, silky whisper. "I have always liked that you are on time, but I wonder what you are waiting for. Is it the dessert or the arrival of rival men at my warehouse?" The color drained from Mr. Song's face. He looked like he had seen a ghost. He tried to speak, but Iseul was already standing up. In one fast move, Iseul reached across the table. His hand closed around Song's throat. The other men scrambled back, their chairs screeching against the floor. "Zita," Iseul said. He kept his eyes on the traitor. "Yes," Zita replied. Her heart was thumping, but her voice was steady. "Check the time." Zita looked at her watch. It was exactly 8:00 p.m. At that moment, a muffled sound of an explosion rolled through the glass walls. Iseul let go of Song, who collapsed into his chair. Iseul turned to Zita. For the first time, there was no coldness in his eyes. There was only respect. He reached out and tucked a stray strand of hair behind her ear. "You saw the lie before I felt the knife," he murmured. "You aren't just a maid, Zita. You're the only person who can see the truth." The smell of smoke and burnt rubber still hung in the air as the car drove through the heavy gates of the mansion. Inside the armored sedan, the silence felt heavy. Zita sat next to Iseul, watching the sunset paint the stone walls of the house in shades of deep orange and soft purple. Just an hour ago, their meeting at a small tea shop had turned into a nightmare. Glass had shattered, and bullets had whistled through the air. If Zita had not seen the nervous look on the waiter's face and pulled Iseul behind a thick stone wall, they might not have made it home. When the car stopped, Iseul did not get out right away. He stared out the window, his jaw tight. A small cut on his cheek was still bleeding, a dark red mark against his pale skin. "Go inside, Zita," Iseul said. His voice was rough and sounded very tired. "I need to be alone for a minute." "You are hurt," Zita replied softly. She reached out but stopped her hand before she touched his arm. "Let me help you." Iseul finally looked at her. His dark eyes were full of a sadness she had never seen before. He did not say anything, but he got out of the car and walked toward the private gardens behind the house. Zita followed him. They walked past the tall hedges and the blooming jasmine flowers. The garden was Iseul's favorite place because it was the only part of his world that felt peaceful. He sat down on a stone bench near a small pond. The water looked like liquid gold in the evening light. Iseul put his head in his hands and sighed. The kingpin that everyone feared was gone. In his place was just a man who looked like he carried the weight of the whole world on his shoulders. "I should not have taken you with me today," Iseul whispered. "I thought I was strong enough to keep you safe. I was wrong." Zita knelt on the soft grass in front of him. She pulled a small first aid kit from the pocket of her dress. "You took me because you trust me, Iseul, and I am glad I was there." She gently cleaned the cut on his cheek. The sun was very low now, making everything look hazy and romantic. Up close, Zita could see the tired lines around Iseul's eyes. She realized that his coldness was just a mask. He acted like a monster so that no one could get close enough to hurt him. "My father told me that loving someone is a weakness," Iseul said. He looked at Zita, and his hand reached out to touch her face. His thumb moved gently over her skin. "For a long time I believed him. I lived in this big house all alone, even when it was full of people. But now, I look for you in every room. When the tea shop exploded, I didn't worry about my business. I only worried about you." Zita felt her heart skip a beat. The air between them felt warm and electric. "You are a danger to me, Zita," he whispered, "because you are the only thing I am afraid to lose." Zita did not pull away. She leaned into his touch and placed her hands on his shoulders. The light gray fabric of his vest felt soft under her fingers. "Then let's be in danger together," she whispered back. Iseul leaned down and his lips met hers. The kiss was soft at first, but it quickly became deep and full of feeling. It tasted like sandalwood and a great sense of relief. In that moment, the guns and the rival gangs did not matter. There was only the smell of the flowers, the warmth of the sun, and the two of them. When they finally pulled apart, they were both breathless. Iseul rested his forehead against hers and closed his eyes. "Always," he promised. Zita looked at him and knew that her life would never be the same. The golden hour was ending, and the dark was coming, but she was not afraid anymore. She had found a home in the heart of a man the rest of the world called a monster. The afternoon sun filled the mansion's sunroom with a warm orange glow. The room was full of white orchids that smelled sweet and fresh. Zita sat on the edge of a velvet chair, her hands folded in her lap. She was wearing her new slate gray dress, but she still felt like the girl who used to scrub the floors. She was waiting for the most powerful woman she had ever heard of, Madame Kang, Iseul's mother. A sharp clicking sound echoed down the hallway. It was the sound of expensive high heels hitting the marble floor. The door opened, and Madame Kang walked in. She was wearing a beautiful cream-colored silk coat, Her silver hair was pulled back into a tight, perfect bun. She had the same dark, piercing eyes as Iseul. She didn't look like a grandmother, she looked like a queen who ruled an empire. "So," Madame Kang said, her voice as smooth as silk, "this is the girl who sees things." Zita stood up and bowed her head. "Madame Kang, it is an honor to meet you." The older woman walked around the room, her silk coat whispering against the rug. She didn't look at the flowers or the view. She looked only at Zita. "My son has always had a soft heart for things that are overlooked," she said. "When he was a little boy, he used to collect broken watches. He would spend hours fixing their tiny gears until they ticked again. I see he has found a new project in you." Madame Kang sat down and poured 2 cups of tea. She moved with perfect grace, but the air in the room felt very cold. She gestured for Zita to sit across from her. Zita took a sip of the tea, but her throat felt tight. "Iseul thinks he is protecting you," Madame Kang continued. "He thinks that by making you his assistant, he is keeping you safe. But he is actually marking you. You are not a ghost in this house anymore, Zita. You are a target. Every person who wants to hurt my son now knows your name. They see you as the one string they can pull to make him fall apart." Madame Kang leaned forward. The scent of her expensive perfume filled the air. "Do you know what happened to the last girl he loved? Her name was Hana. She was smart and beautiful. Iseul thought his power was like a shield that would keep her safe. But on the day they were to be engaged, his enemies didn't attack him. They attacked her. They broke her mind until she couldn't even remember Iseul's name. She is gone now, and my son carries that guilt every single day." Zita felt a chill run down her spine. She pictured Iseul's face, the way his jaw tightened, and the loneliness in his eyes. She realized his coldness was not because he was mean, but because he was trying to keep history from repeating itself. "Loving a man like my son is not a fairy tale," Madame Kang whispered. "It is a death sentence. You will never have a peaceful dinner. You will never sleep without wondering if the person guarding your door has been paid to hurt you. You will watch him do terrible things to keep you safe, and you will have to decide if you can still love him afterward." The older woman stood up, the meeting over. She walked toward the door but stopped to look back. "I see the way he looks at you, Zita. For the first time in years, he looks like a man who feels something. But a man who feels is a man who can be broken. If you truly care for him, ask yourself if you are strong enough to be his strength. Because if you fail, you will destroy him and the Kang family name." The door clicked shut, leaving Zita alone in the golden light. The sun didn't look pretty anymore. It looked like fire. Zita walked to the window and watched Madame Kang's car drive away. She touched the lace ribbon on her wrist. Madame Kang was right, she was a target now. But Zita was not a broken watch. She was the girl who had survived the shadows long before Iseul found her. She straightened her shoulders and took a deep breath. If the rivals were going to try to pull the string to break Iseul, they would find out that Zita was made of wire. The morning sun moved across the marble floors of the mansion like honey. It poured over the light tan rugs and the white lace of Zita's cuffs. It had been 6 weeks since she stopped being a ghost in the hallways. Now her hands did not shake as much when she reached for Iseul's collar. He stood before the tall windows, the golden light catching the sharp lines of his jaw. He was wearing a dove-gray suit that fit him perfectly, and his cream-colored silk shirt was open at the top as he waited for her. This had become their special morning ritual. No matter how busy the mafia business became, Iseul always waited for Zita to fix his tie. She reached up and touched the cool silk of a pale gold necktie. Iseul looked down at her with dark, intense eyes. Zita could feel the heat where his gaze touched her skin. He was a man of quiet power who rarely spoke, but in these quiet moments, the silence felt like a sweet conversation. She carefully folded the fabric and made sure the knot was perfectly straight. "The house feels different today," Zita whispered. Her voice was soft in the quiet room. She smoothed the silk against his chest and felt the steady beat of his heart beneath her fingers. "It should," Iseul replied in his low, deep voice. "Yeon is gone. The bad smell of his betrayal has been scrubbed away, just like the floors you used to clean." Zita looked toward the front doors. A new man was standing by the black car. His name was Sang-woo. He was a big man with a face that looked like it was made of stone. He wore a tan suit that made him look more like a businessman than a guard. Iseul had hired him because he had a family to protect, which usually meant a man would stay loyal. Since the day Zita found the gun on the old driver, Iseul had not made a single move without asking her what she saw first. He called her his extra set of eyes. "Do you trust him?" Zita asked, nodding toward the new driver. Iseul stepped closer and placed a hand on Zita's waist. The touch was light, but it made her heart race. "I trust no one but you, Zita, but we are safe for now. The poison is out of the house." Zita finished the tie and stepped back, looking out the window at the beautiful gardens. But as she looked past the iron gates, her stomach did a slow, nervous flip. A dark car was parked across the street. It sat perfectly still in the hazy morning mist. It had no license plates. It did not belong to any of the neighbors. "Iseul," Zita said, her voice turning sharp. "The danger is not in the driver's seat anymore." He followed her gaze, his dark brows pulling together. He did not say anything, but Zita saw his jaw tighten. For weeks, they had been looking for a traitor inside the mansion. They had checked every maid and every guard. They thought they were safe because Yeun was gone. But as Zita watched the dark car slowly pull away the moment Iseul looked at it, she realized they had made a mistake. They were not looking for a leak inside the house anymore. They were being hunted from the outside. "Wait in the study, Zita," Iseul commanded. He reached into his coat and pulled out a small phone. "Sang-woo. Change the route. We have company." Zita watched him walk away, his gray suit glowing in the sun. He looked powerful, but she knew the truth. She knew he was lonely behind his walls of money. She went to the library and turned on the security screens. She scrolled back through the video from the last 3 days. Her eyes burned as she stared at the screens, looking for patterns. Then she saw it. The dark car had been there at exactly 6:00 a.m. every morning for a week. The driver was always a man with a scar on his face. He was not trying to get inside. He was timing the guards. He was mapping Iseul's life like a puzzle. The broken trust was not about one bad driver. It was the feeling of safety that was gone. The golden light in the room suddenly felt cold. Zita realized the rival families did not want to steal from Iseul anymore. They wanted to erase him. As the shadows grew longer on the floor, Zita realized that being Iseul's eyes meant she would have to see things much scarier than a hidden gun. The war was coming to their front door, and the pretty mansion was no longer a fortress. The library was the only place in the big house that truly felt like Zita's. It was a room full of tall shelves and books that smelled like old paper and vanilla. In the late afternoon, the sun hit the high windows at just the right angle. It created a warm, golden glow that made the whole room look like a beautiful dream. Zita sat in a soft leather chair, holding a new book Iseul had given her. For the first time in her life, she did not feel like a maid scrubbing floors. She felt like she finally belonged. Iseul had been busy since the sun came up. The war with the rival gangs was getting worse, and he was in important meetings to keep his family safe. He had kissed Zita's forehead before he left, telling her to stay in the library where it was quiet. He promised her she was safe behind the mansion's thick stone walls and guarded gates. Zita wanted to believe him. She looked down at her soft silk dress, feeling the expensive fabric against her skin. She was no longer a ghost in a tan uniform. She was someone Iseul loved. But then the house went very quiet. The mansion was usually full of small sounds, like the clink of dishes from the kitchen or the distant footsteps of guards on patrol. Suddenly, all those sounds stopped. It felt like the house was holding its breath. Zita stood up, her heart starting to beat fast against her ribs. She remembered what she had learned about being invisible. It was a good way to hide, but it also meant no one would hear her if she called for help. She reached for the small weapon Iseul had taught her how to use, but before she could touch it, the library doors burst open. It was not a friendly worker or a guard coming to check on her. 3 men she did not know stepped into the warm light. They did not wear the neat suits of Iseul's men. They looked mean and carried heavy guns. Their shadows stretched long and dark across the pretty marble floor. "Zita," the leader said. He had a cold smile that made her blood turn to ice. "The boss has been hiding his favorite treasure in here. It is time for you to come with us." Zita did not scream. She tried to fight back, just like Iseul had shown her. She threw a heavy book at the first man and tried to run for the balcony. But there were too many of them. One man grabbed her arms and twisted them behind her back until it hurt. Zita struggled, her shoes kicking against the floor, but the men were too strong. She watched as her book fell to the rug, its pages fluttering like a broken wing. "Vittorio will be very happy to see you," the man whispered in her ear. "You are going to help us break your boss's heart." They pulled a dark cloth bag over her head. Suddenly her golden world was gone. Everything turned to black. Zita felt them drag her out of the room and through the hallways she used to clean. She heard the sound of a chair tipping over and glass breaking. She was thrown into the back of a cold metal van and the engine roared to life. As the car sped away from the mansion, Zita realized that being seen was a very dangerous thing. She was no longer just a maid, she was the prize in a deadly game. She knew that when Iseul found his library empty and his favorite books scattered on the floor, the golden hour would end. A storm was coming, and she was right in the middle of it. The golden light of the mansion was gone. Now, the only thing Zita could see was a single dusty light bulb hanging from a high metal ceiling. The air did not smell like lemon soap or sandalwood anymore. Instead, it smelled like old rust, stagnant water, and the salty wind from the ocean nearby. Zita sat on a cold metal chair, her wrists tied behind her back with plastic strips that bit into her skin. Her head throbbed where the men had struck her in the library, but she kept her eyes open. She refused to be invisible now. The heavy sound of a sliding metal door echoed through the empty space. A man walked into the light, his shoes clicking loudly on the concrete floor. He wore a suit that looked very expensive, but his face was full of a mean kind of joy. This was Vittorio Castellano, the man who wanted to take everything Iseul had built. He stopped in front of Zita and tilted his head, looking at her as if she were a prize he had just won at a fair. "So, you are the one," Vittorio said. His voice was smooth and cold, like a snake sliding through grass. "The little maid who saved the king. Iseul has spent years being a ghost, hiding behind his walls and his rules. But then he found you, and he became human. He became weak." Zita felt a cold shiver run down her spine, but she did not look away. "I am just a worker," she said, her voice sounding stronger than she felt. "You are wasting your time. Iseul cares about his business. He cares about his family name. He won't give those up for me." Vittorio laughed, and the sound bounced off the dark corners of the warehouse. "That is where you are wrong, Zita. A man like Iseul doesn't promote a maid to his side unless she is the heart of his world. I don't want a ransom. I don't want money. I want the southern docks, the shipping routes, and the keys to his empire. And I know he will hand them all to me just to see you breathe one more day." Zita looked at the shadows on the floor. She remembered the morning in the foyer, the way the sunlight had hit Iseul's jaw, and the way he had trusted her to fix his tie. She remembered Madame Kang's warning in the library. "You are the string they can pull to unravel him." It was all true. She wasn't just a hostage, she was the weapon Vittorio was using to destroy the man she loved. "He's a smart man," Zita whispered, mostly to herself. "He knows a trap when he sees one." "He does," Vittorio agreed, leaning in close. His shadow covered her completely. "But love makes even the smartest men stupid. By the time the sun sets tonight, Iseul will have to choose. He can keep his crown or he can keep his girl. And I am betting everything that he chooses you." Vittorio walked away, leaving Zita alone in the growing darkness. A small beam of orange light from the setting sun peeked through a hole in the roof, hitting the floor near her feet. It was the golden hour, but it didn't feel beautiful anymore. It felt like a countdown. Zita pulled at the ties on her wrists, the plastic cutting deeper into her skin. She realized that Iseul was walking into a nightmare because of her. For the first time in her life, she didn't want to be protected. She wanted to be the one doing the saving. The air in the warehouse was thick with the smell of old rust and salty water. Zita sat in a hard metal chair, her hands tied tight behind her back. A single beam of evening light cut through a hole in the roof. It looked like gold dust floating in the dark. reminding her of the pretty foyer where her life had first changed. But here, the golden hour felt like a countdown. Vittorio Castellano walked around her in circles. He was tapping a heavy ring against the metal walls, making a loud clink, clink, clink sound that made Zita's skin crawl. He told her she was a pretty little bird that would finally bring the great Iseul to his knees. Zita kept her head high, even though her heart was thumping like a drum. She thought about the way Iseul's silk tie felt between her fingers and the way he had looked at her in the garden. She prayed he was smart enough to stay away. Suddenly, the heavy metal doors at the end of the warehouse groaned open. The sound was as loud as a gunshot. Every guard in the room jumped and reached for their guns. Zita held her breath. Through the mist and the orange sunlight, a tall figure walked inside. It was Iseul. He was completely alone. He didn't have Antonio or his army of guards behind him. He wasn't holding a weapon. He wore his light gray waistcoat, but it was wrinkled now, and his white shirt was open at the neck. He looked tired, but his aristocratic jaw was set firm. He walked right into the middle of the room, surrounded by men pointing rifles at his chest. "Let her go, Vittorio," Iseul said. His voice was a low, steady rumble that filled the empty space. He didn't look at the guns. He only looked at Zita. When their eyes met, the cold mask he usually wore finally broke. Zita saw a look of raw pain and love that made her throat ache. Vittorio laughed, a mean and hollow sound. "You came alone. The great kingpin of the Kang family is giving up for a maid?" "She isn't just a maid," Iseul replied, taking one more step forward. "She is everything. Take me instead. I will sign your contracts. I will give you the docks. Just let her walk out of those doors right now." Zita tried to scream no, but the words felt stuck in her throat. She didn't want him to be a prisoner. She didn't want him to lose his empire for her. But Iseul wouldn't look away. He stood there, unarmed and vulnerable, trading his life for hers like it was the easiest choice he had ever made. Vittorio smiled a greedy, evil smile. He signaled for his men to grab Iseul. "Kneel," Vittorio commanded. Iseul didn't fight. He slowly dropped to his knees on the cold, dirty concrete. He put his hands behind his head, surrendering everything. Two guards grabbed Zita by the arms and began to drag her toward the exit. She struggled, her sensible shoes scuffing against the floor, but they were too strong. As the heavy doors began to close, Zita looked back one last time. She saw Iseul kneeling in the center of the dark warehouse, a golden beam of light hitting his shoulders. He looked like a king who had given up his crown, but he didn't look defeated. He looked at Zita and gave a tiny, brave nod. The doors shut with a heavy thud, leaving Iseul in the dark and Zita in the light. She stood on the docks, the cool wind hitting her face. Iseul had made his choice to save her. Now, as she looked at her red wrists and the closed warehouse, Zita knew she had to make hers. She wasn't going to run. She was going to be the one to bring him home. The sun was starting to set, turning the sky from a warm gold to a deep, bruised purple. Inside the mansion, the air felt cold and empty without Iseul. Zita stood at the top of the stairs, her hands gripping the railing. She could hear the guards shouting in the foyer below. They sounded like a hive of angry bees. Antonio was at the center of the room, his face looking like it was carved from gray stone. He was slamming a heavy equipment bag onto the marble floor. "We leave in 10 minutes, he barked. "We hit the warehouse with everything we have. If the Castellanos want a war, we will give them a graveyard." The other guards cheered. They were grabbing rifles and checking their vests. They wanted to be loud. They wanted revenge. But Zita knew that if they went in like a thunderstorm, the only thing they would bring back was Iseul's body. She took a deep breath, forcing the fear of power out of her chest. She wasn't an invisible maid anymore. She was the woman Iseul had sacrificed everything to save. Zita walked down the stairs, her steps slow and steady. "Stop," she called out. Her voice wasn't loud, but it was sharp enough to make the room go quiet. Antonio looked up, his eyes red with anger. "Zita, go to the kitchen. This isn't a place for you. We have to save the boss." "You aren't going to save him," Zita said, stepping into the circle of armed men. She walked right up to the mahogany table where the map of the waterfront was spread out. "Vittorio Castellano is a man who loves to win. He knows you are coming. He is waiting for you to blow the front doors so he can use his snipers in the canning factory across the street." The guards looked at each other, confused. Antonio frowned. "How do you know about the canning factory?" "Because I watched the driver's eyes on the way there," Zita replied. She pointed to a small spot on the map, her finger steady. "Vittorio wants a show. He wants you to act like angry boys with no plan. If you go in through the front, Iseul dies before you reach the first hallway." She looked at the men. They were big and strong, but they were blinded by their rage. Zita saw the details they missed. She saw the trap. "Instead of running away, I am going to lead you," Zita said. The guards started to murmur, but she held up her hand. "We don't go in loud. We go in like a secret. There is an old sea gate on the south side of the building. The hinges are rusted. If a small team slips in there, you will be behind his guards before they even know the gate is open." Antonio studied the map. He looked at the bruise on Zita's cheek and the fire in her eyes. He realized she wasn't guessing. She was the Iseul had trusted for a reason. "You want us to take orders from a maid?" Marco asked, though he didn't sound as mean as before. "I am the person Iseul chose to stand by his side," Zita said, her voice full of quiet power. "I am the one who knows what he whispered to me before the doors closed. He didn't tell me to run. He told me to live, and I am choosing to live by bringing him home." Antonio stayed silent for a long moment. Then he reached over and picked up a tactical headset, handing it to Zita. "The boss always said you saw what everyone else missed." "Okay, Zita, tell us what we need to do." Zita felt a spark of hope. She wasn't just a shadow in the corner anymore. She was the one holding the map. She began to explain the plan, her voice calm and disciplined. They wouldn't be a thunderstorm, they would be the lightning. As the guards began to move with a new, quiet purpose, Zita looked at Iseul's empty chair in the library. "I'm coming for you, Iseul," she whispered. The night air was cold and smelled like salt and old metal. Zita stood in the shadows of the shipping docks, but she did not look like a maid anymore. The tan uniform was gone. She wore a dark, heavy coat that hid her shaking hands. Behind her stood Antonio and 10 of Iseul's best guards. They were all armed and waiting for her word. For 3 months, these men had looked past Zita as if she were a piece of furniture. Now, they looked at her like she was their only hope. Zita stared at the dark warehouse. She remembered every detail from when she was a prisoner there just hours ago. She remembered the loose board on the north side and the way the guards shifted their weight when they were tired. She knew exactly where Iseul was being held. The rival gang thought Iseul had surrendered, but they didn't know he had left behind a partner who knew how to fight. "The main doors are a trap," Zita whispered to Antonio. Her voice was steady, even though her heart was thumping. "They want us to come in loud. We're going to use the side vent I saw earlier. It's small, but it leads right to the rafters." Antonio nodded. He gave a silent signal, and the team moved like shadows across the gravel. Zita led the way, her eyes sharp. She saw a guard lighting a cigarette near the entrance. She waited until his head was turned, then signaled for the team to move. They reached the side of the building without making a single sound. With a sharp click, the guards cut through the vent. Zita climbed in first. She crawled through the dusty metal tunnel until she could see the warehouse floor below. The room was lit by a single flickering bulb. In the center, Iseul was tied to a heavy chair. His light gray waistcoat was torn, and there was blood on his sharp jawline. He looked tired, but his dark eyes were still full of fire. Standing over him was the rival boss, laughing as he held a gun to Iseul's head. "Give the signal," Zita whispered into her radio. Suddenly, the warehouse erupted into a symphony of glass and sparks. The guards at the north wall set off a small explosion as a distraction. The rival men turned toward the noise, and that was when Zita's team dropped from the rafters like falling stars. The air became thick with the smell of gunpowder. Bullets whistled through the air, hitting crates and breaking windows. Zita didn't stay in the rafters. She slid down a heavy rope, landing on the concrete floor with a thud. She pulled the compact gun from her belt, the weight of it feeling natural in her hand. She moved through the smoke, her eyes locked on Iseul. A rival guard jumped in her way, but Zita didn't hesitate. She remembered everything Iseul had told her about being bold when survival demanded it. She ducked under the guard's arm and used the butt of her gun to knock him back. She was no longer the invisible girl. She was a storm. The rival boss turned, his eyes wide with shock. He saw the maid he had mocked earlier standing in the middle of the battlefield. Before he could pull the trigger on Iseul, Zita leveled her weapon at him. "Drop it," she commanded. Her voice cut through the sound of gunfire. The rival boss hesitated, looking at the army of men surrounding him. He saw Antonio and the others closing in. He realized he had lost. He let his gun fall to the floor with a loud clang. Zita ran to Iseul. Her hands were finally steady as she used a knife to cut through his ropes. The moment he was free, Iseul stood up and pulled Zita into his arms. He held her so tight she could feel his heartbeat. He smelled like sandalwood and the gritty dust of the warehouse. "You came back," Iseul murmured into her hair. His voice was full of wonder. "I told you I'd be your eyes," Zita replied, looking up at him. The battle was over. The rival gang was defeated, and the warehouse was quiet once more. Antonio stepped forward, bowing his head to both of them. As they walked out into the cool night air, the first hints of dawn were starting to show. The golden hour was coming back, and this time they were going to face it together. The bandages were finally gone, leaving only small, faint scars on Iseul's skin. These were the marks of his old life as a monster, but now he was a new man. It had been 6 months since that scary night at the warehouse. The smoke was gone and the sirens were a distant memory. The mansion used to feel like a cold stone prison, but now it felt different. The warm golden hour sunlight that Zita used to see while scrubbing floors now filled every corner of the big hallway. It felt like the sun was happy to stay there with them. Zita stood at the top of the wide stairs, watching Iseul from above. He was standing by the giant windows, looking out at the gardens. He wasn't wearing a stiff suit or a heavy gun today. Instead, he wore a soft, cream-colored sweater. He looked peaceful, even though he still touched his side where he had been hurt. He wasn't the scary kingpin anymore. He was just Iseul, the man who had given up everything to save Zita. Zita walked down the stairs, her shoes quiet on the soft rug. She remembered when she used to try to be invisible in this house. Back then, her heart would beat fast because she was afraid. Now it only beat fast because she was in love. Iseul turned around when he heard her. His sharp jawline looked softer when he smiled. His dark eyes caught the golden light of the morning sun. "You are up early," Iseul said. His voice was deep and kind. He reached out and touched Zita's face, pulling her into a warm hug. Zita rested her head on his chest. He smelled like wood and expensive soap, but he didn't smell like danger anymore. "I talked to your mother," Zita said, looking up at him. "The new charity foundation is moving into its office today. She is so excited about helping people. She told me I was lucky I saved you because you are too stubborn to save yourself." Iseul laughed, a sound that Zita thought was a miracle. They walked together to the middle of the foyer. This was the exact spot where Zita had first fixed his tie and changed their lives forever. The house still smelled like lemon soap, but the air felt lighter now. Iseul looked up at the big glass chandelier. It didn't look like a show of power anymore, it just looked like a bunch of stars. "Everything is different now," Iseul said softly. "The bad businesses are closed. The warehouses are gone. There are no more enemies left to fight. Only our future." Zita took his hands. She felt the rough spots on his palms from his hard past. She knew things wouldn't always be easy, but they were safe. She reached into the pocket of her silk dress and pulled out a small white stick. Her heart started to flutter, but she wasn't afraid. She placed it in Iseul's hand. Iseul looked at the stick. He stood perfectly still. Then his eyes grew wide. He looked at the stick, then back at Zita. His hands, which had once held weapons, were now shaking. "Zita," he whispered, We are going to be parents, Iseul," Zita said with a happy tear in her eye. "A real new beginning." Iseul didn't say a word. He just picked her up and spun her around in the bright sunlight. Zita laughed, and the sound echoed off the marble walls. He set her down very gently, like she was made of glass. He put his hands on her stomach as if he was already protecting their baby. The front doors opened, and a new driver came in to get Iseul's bag. He was a kind man with a friendly smile. Iseul looked at the door, then back at Zita. He touched his gold-colored silk tie. He tried to fix it, but he was too excited to get it right. "I think I missed a spot," he teased, his eyes shining. Zita stepped forward. Her fingers were steady as she reached for his collar. She fixed the knot and smoothed the silk against his chest, just like she did that first morning. But this time, she didn't have to whisper a warning. She didn't have to look for a gun. She only looked at Iseul. "Perfect," she said, patting his chest. Iseul leaned down and kissed her. It was a kiss that promised many more happy mornings. They walked toward the door together, stepping out into the bright, warm light. The war was over. The debt was paid. They weren't just surviving anymore. They were finally home. Zita saved Iseul's life with a single whisper, but can their love survive the war she started? Subscribe to join the family and never miss a chapter of their dark journey. Click the bell so you're always the first to hear the secrets.